천지존 TV 실시간 게릴라 방송 님이 반갑습니다. 수고하십니다. DJ 대한민국 골뱅이 TV ATTNTIONTV 님이네. VRA BLMONT 님이 탐사. VRA BLMONT 님이. VRA BLMONT 님이. DJ 대한민국 골뱅이 TV ATTNTIONTV 님이 안녕하세요. DJ 대한민국 골뱅이 TV ATTNTIONTV 님이 코인 돈 벌기 하는 게임.
뭐다?
팀론 브이로그 님이. DJ 대한민국 골뱅이 TV ATTNTIONTV 님이 틴로님 안녕하세요.
Ugh.
VRA BLMONT 님이 VRA BLMONT 님이
だ。おだ。おだ。
트윈 비속 레드님이 트윈 비속 레드님이 트윈 비속 레드님이 트윈 비속 레드님이 워킹 마이 프렌드 DJ 대한민국 골뱅이 TV ATTNTIONTV 님이 안녕하세요.
에?
옴스 피크피크님이 오파. DJ 대한민국 골뱅이 TV ATTNTIONTV 님이 하이. 트윈 비속 레드님이. 트윈 비속 레드님이.
そうだ。そうだ。 そうだ。そうだ。
오복시15님이 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 DJ 대한민국 골뱅이 TV ATTNTIONTV님이네. RYNANGMGAKAMBING 2님이 던투소 코스트. RYNANGMGAKAMBING 2님이 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 나디네 블록님이 오파. 나디네 블록님이 헬로. 나디네 블록님이.
我的。脖子。 そうだ。そうだよ。
린스 채널 USA 님이 굿모닝 호스트. 린스 채널 USA 님이 썸즈 업턴. 린스 채널 USA 님이 헬로 에브리원. 린스 채널 USA 님이 MSO 프롬 플로라이다 USA.
다음 글 목록 자유 게시판 집회공지사항 여투이 김전무 우리공화당원 구독 1. 한 채팅 (2023년 2월 11일) 11시 43분 예덱시트 1 패스 더 스타어벅스 고 다운 투 제2행동 이턴 파워 리버 OTH 골뱅이 내비 어드레스 제2
Take line 7 and get off at exit 1, past the Starbucks, go down to Jiangdong Catholic Church, and take the road to the right of the church. If you walk about 400 meters. Immediately after passing through the shopping district. Jiangdong Eaton Tower River 5th. At Navi address Jeong 3 Dong 856. At rally date. First meeting, February 2nd to February 14th. At time. Part 1 9:11 and 30 seconds AM. Part 2 1:3 and 30 seconds PM. Seoul. Incheon. Gyeonggi-do. Ulster Bismuth. In addition, MDP Representative Lee Jae-myung completed his third prosecutor's subpoena investigation. Prosecutors are expected to review the entire investigation of Lee and seek an arrest warrant without further subpoenas. According to the prosecutor's office on the 11th, Lee completed the second summons investigation around 10:36 p.m. the previous day and returned home 2 hours after the prosecutor's appearance. Leaving the courthouse, Lee said, "There is no new evidence presented and we could not find any basis other than the reversed statements of those involved in the prosecution who were captured by the prosecution," calling it a very unjust act. Prosecutors continued their investigation until about 11 p.m., but Lee reportedly refused to conduct a late-night investigation and could not proceed further. Prosecutors focused their investigation on allegations of irregularities in the development of Uri New City and Daejeongdong. Prosecutors suspect that Lee was involved or condoned in allegations of giving preferential treatment to private business owners in Daejeongdong and leaking internal secrets related to the Uri New City project. It also investigated allegations of equity surrounding the 9.1 billion won dividend of Cheonhwadong No. 428, an affiliate of Wachin Daewoo, a private operator in Daejeongdong. Prosecutors suspect that Lee's close associates, Chung
트윈
Jin-sang,
비공예드님이
former head of the MDP Political Affairs Coordination Office, and Kim Young, former deputy director of the Democracy Research Institute, agreed to receive a 1.428 billion won stake in Cheonhwadong in No. 1 along with Yu Dong-kyu, former head of the planning department of the Songnam Urban Development Corporation, which Lee reported or approved. The prosecutor's office stated in the complaint accusing the party of violating the Conflict of Interest Prevention Act that Lee was briefed and approved by Jong John in the discussions. However, in his affidavit, Lee said, in a word, it is a ridiculous and insulting claim, claiming that it has nothing to do with Cheonhwadong No. 8 and did not know it existed until the media reported it. Prosecutors reportedly also confirmed against Lee the allegation of receiving 4,700 million won of illegal political funds from former Vice Chairman Kim. Prosecutors believe that Kim actually received 6 million won. Lee reportedly replied that he did not include it in the affidavit because he did not know about it. Millennium Democratic Party, MDP, spokesman Pak Sung-jun criticized the prosecutor's investigation in a written briefing, saying, "They repeatedly deliberately delayed the investigation by wasting time with local questions or asking and repeating questions about the meaning of the affidavit and the implications of the sentence."
기사 상세
Time is running out. What happens to Samsung SK China Semiconductor Factory, MK Weekly Semiconductor? Top 0 comments. Recommended articles. Reporter for the luncheon. Oksh 2123 at mk.co.kr. Input. February 11th. As early as this month, the fate of Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix's operations in China will be decided. This is because the U.S. Department of Commerce plans to announce the subsidy application process under the Semiconductor Industry Development Act, Semiconductor Act, which was enacted to strengthen the competitiveness of the country's semiconductor industry, later this month. The U.S. Semiconductor Act includes a guardrail clause along with increased subsidies to foster the country's semiconductor industry. The goal is to prohibit companies that have received tax credits or subsidies from the U.S. government from building or investing in advanced semiconductor facilities in countries of concern such as China for the next 10 years. Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix are moving breathlessly ahead of the U.S. government's finalization of the guardrail provision. The overriding goal is to get an exception to the U.S. Semiconductor and Science Act, CHIPS Act, ban on investment in countries of concern. We are expecting a similar pattern to the one-year moratorium on export controls of advanced semiconductor equipment to China in October last year. The U.S. CHIPS Act, which was promulgated in August last year, provides incentives for the expansion of new semiconductor factories and equipment modernization in the country with the aim of reviving the industry in the United States and winning the competition for technological supremacy. In particular, it contains a guardrail clause that prohibits companies subsidized by the Semiconductor Act from building advanced semiconductor facilities or investing in additional existing facilities in countries of concern, including China, over the next 8 years. For Korean semiconductor companies that have production facilities in China as well as the United States, this is a difficult situation. The U.S. government plans to finalize detailed guidance later this month regarding the semiconductor law's prohibition on investment in China. View of the Taylorish Foundry Factory under construction by Samsung Electronics. Photo equals Samsung Electronics, President Byung Hyun SNS. Samsung Electronics and SK hynix have been hoping to benefit from the U.S. Semiconductor Act as they expand or establish new semiconductor factories in the United States. Samsung Electronics operates a foundry plant in Austin, Texas. A new plant is under construction in Taylor, Texas, near the current operating plant. There have been foreign media reports that Samsung Electronics plans to build 20 new semiconductor factories in Texas over the next 11 years. SK hynix will invest $150 billion, approximate KRW 18.7000 trillion, to invest in advanced packaging manufacturing and semiconductor-related R&D. To this end, it is expected that paper will be selected for advanced packaging plants during this year. It is estimated that the factory will start mass production in 2025-2026 and employ more than 1,000 people. SK Group Chairman Choi Tae-won himself revealed a new investment plan worth $220 billion, about 29 trillion won, in a video interview with U.S. President Joe Biden last year. The U.S. welcomed the investment initiative by releasing huge subsidies. However, if the guardrail clause is strictly applied, the position of Samsung and SK hynix becomes embarrassing. That's when factories in China become virtually impossible to operate. Even upgrading existing facilities can become impossible. In fact, since last year, when the U.S. pressure on semiconductors to the public began in earnest, both Samsung Electronics and SK hynix have been struggling to operate factories in China. Samsung Electronics invested 3 trillion won in March last year to start mass production of its ZN30 plant, but it is unclear whether it will be possible to continuously upgrade its facilities in the future. Samsung Electronics Vice President Kim Jae-jun said during an earnings conference call on March 2 regarding the ZN plant in China, "It took a long time to operate the factory stably in China, and a lot of investment has already been made, so it is an issue that needs to be considered very carefully." SK hynix, which announced investment in microprocessing by bringing extreme ultraviolet EUV equipment to its Wuxi plant in China, is known to have put such plans on hold. If you liked this article, in the case of former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe being shot and killed during a street speech in Nara City, the Nara Prefectural Police decided to send Tetsuya Yamakami, 42, charged with murder and violation of the firearms and swords law on suspicion of damage to a building that test-fired into a building in the city where a facility related to the Family Federation for World Peace and Unification, former Unification Church, was located, and on suspicion of violating the weapons manufacturing law for manufacturing guns without permission. High-cost support should not be returned millions of yen in total. Yamagami suspect consulted dissatisfied with psychiatric evaluation. More than 7 months after the incident, the series of investigations is expected to be concluded. I found out on the 10th through interviews with people involved in the investigation. Yamagami told the prefectural police, in the early morning of the 7th, the day before the incident, I fired a test shot of a homemade gun at a facility related to the former Unification Church. At that time, several holes that looked like gunshots were found near the door and in the outer wall of the building where the facilities related to the former Unification Church were located. The prefectural police planned to send Yamagami to the police station on suspicion of damaging buildings and violating the Firearms and Swords Act for firing and damaging a gun he made himself. Prefectural police confiscated several guns and gunpowder from Yamagami's home. Based on the information he looked up on the internet, he thought that he had made it himself and conducted an appraisal. As a result, the company plans to send additional prosecutions on suspicion of violating the weapons manufacturing law and the explosives control law for making guns and gunpowder without permission. In addition, he plans to be sent back to the prosecution on charges such as violating the public election law for obstructing the freedom of election and violating the Firearms and Swords Act for possessing a gun when he test shot in the mountains of the prefecture. Yamagami was charged with killing Mr. Abe, who was giving a speech in support of the House of Councilors election, at around 11:30 a.m. on July 8 last year on the street in front of Kintetsu Yamato Saidaiji Station in Nara City, by firing 2 homemade guns at close range, hitting him in the upper left arm and killing him.
김성태 금고지기 전 재경총괄본부장 압송, 대북 송금 의 변호사 2023년 2월
Kim Sung-tae, former head of the General Finance and Economics Division, of the General Finance and Economics Division of Treasury Keeper. Speed of investigation of remittances to North Korea and payment of lawyer fees. Registration 2023.0. Good lawmaker Kwok Sang-do 50 billion won, common sense judgment urged. News Inter February 11, 2023 10:50 edit February 11, 2023 10:50. Printing. Smaller text. Larger text. Share on Facebook. Share on Twitter. Share your blog. Seoul equals Newsies. Reporter Kim Nam-hee equals the Good Lawmakers. Good Law, a corporation made up of lawyers and citizens, criticized the acquittal of former lawmaker Kwok Sang-doo in the first instance on bribery charges, saying, "We urge common sense judgment." In a statement on August 1, the Good Han Law said, the Seoul Central District Law acquitted former lawmaker Kwok, who was put on trial for accepting 11 billion won in the name of his son's retirement pay and bonuses, on charges of bribery and racketeering. They pointed out that lineal secrecy is a relationship that can be seen as an economic community more than anyone else, and that, in particular, since members of the National Assembly had comprehensive duties such as state audits of the ministries and agencies under their jurisdiction, their status and job relevance should be judged more broadly. This case is a corruption scandal with such great repercussions that former Supreme Court justices, special prosecutors, and ruling party politicians have given the so-called 50 billion club name, and it has great social significance. Ozon, solve the cost problem with the luxury implant support benefit 59.1. Event. On March 8, photo equals Yonhap News. It is expected that the spent nuclear fuel storage facilities of nuclear power plants operating in the country will be filled one after another from 2030. Accordingly, there are concerns that in 7-9 years, 18 nuclear power plants may be shut down due to saturation of storage facilities. However, the National Assembly's handling of the special law on high-level radioactive waste to build spent nuclear fuel storage facilities has stalled. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy announced on the 10th the results of the re-establishment of the time of saturation of spent nuclear fuel. According to the Ministry of Industry, the storage facilities at the Jeonnam Yangwangwang Hanvit nuclear power plant will be full by 2030. When the second basic plan for radioactive waste management was established in December 2021, the saturation point was expected to be 12, but it was accelerated by 1 year. The saturation date of the Hanul nuclear power plant was 1 year from 2 to 2031, and the Shinwilseong nuclear power plant was brought forward by 2 years, from 1 to 2032. Gori nuclear power plant has been extended by 1 year from 2031 to 1. The saturation time of the Seoul nuclear power plant was expected to be 2044, the same as the previous forecast. For the first time, the Woolsong nuclear power plant has been proposed as 2042. As an observatory, the storage facilities of the Hanvit nuclear power plant, 6th, Hanul nuclear power plant, 7th, and Gori nuclear power plant, 5th, will be full from 2030 to 2032. After 7-9 years, 18 nuclear power plants may be shut down. This reflects the Yoon Suk-yeol government's policy of expanding nuclear power plants, unlike the 2021 outlook. The policy of increasing the utilization rate of nuclear plants, increasing the design life, and building more new nuclear plants will increase the saturation point of spent nuclear fuel storage facilities. The amount of spent nuclear fuel generated was previously 63,5329 bundles, but in this forecast, it has increased by 79,3955 bundles to 15,8626 bundles. It is difficult to guarantee the passage of a bill related to spent nuclear fuel storage facilities in the National Assembly. Currently, 3 special laws on high-level radioactive waste management and support for detention areas have been proposed as legislative legislation in the National Assembly, but they only completed public hearings last month and have not even been discussed in subcommittees yet. Both parties sympathize with the need for a special law on radioactive waste, but they are reluctant to deal with the bill due to opposition from local residents. The problem is that in order to continue operating the nuclear power plant after 7 years, it is first necessary to build a new storage facility on the site. The site's storage facilities also require a construction period of about 7 years to ensure stability. If construction fails to start this year, it may be more difficult to build a storage facility next year when there is a general election. In this case, there is a risk that the scenario of nuclear shutdown will become a reality. Reality. Experts point out that among the major countries that operate nuclear power plants, it is difficult to find examples other than South Korea that have not selected even a site for an intermediate storage facility as well as a permanent disposal facility, stockade. Finland will operate the world's first permanent stockade from 2025, and the United States, France, China, and Russia have secured a permanent stockade. So, DP chief slams prosecution for failing to find proof of allegations. Written, 2023-02-1012:54:00 updated, February 10, 2023, 15:24 and 21 seconds / Share. Print. Photo, Yonhap News. Main opposition Democratic Party, DP, leader Lee Jae-myung criticized the prosecution for failing to find proof that he committed a breach of trust as Songnam mayor in connection to a land development scandal. Before entering the Seoul Central District Prosecutor's office for a second round of questioning over his suspected role on Friday, Lee said the state agency has yet to find evidence to back the allegations despite prolonging the investigation and manipulating testimonies. Lee is accused of incurring losses for Songnam while helping private investors reap over 800 billion won, or over $630 million in profits from development projects. Prosecutors also suspect that Lee facilitated the receipt of 42.8 billion won by his aides, including then-chief policy advisor Jong Jin-sang, and intervened in drawing election campaign funds in return for business favors. The DP chief was previously grilled for over 12 hours on January 28. Share. basement floors 42 floors above ground, 11 buildings, and 1180 households, with a general distribution of 679 households. For general sale, 34465982. It consists of 101. It is expected to move in March 2026. The sale price is 3 million won for the dedicated 59 and 6 million won for the dedicated 4900. In the case of a dedicated 82, if you add the balcony expansion fee, 8.6900 million won, the sale price is 82.2914 million won, which is close to 8 million won. This is the highest sale price ever in Guri City. In the case of the Hill State Copper Station, which was most recently sold in the area, 9814 dedicated to it was supplied for 9 million won when it was sold in February last year. Even if you add the balcony expansion fee, 2.84 million won, it is 7.9200 million won. In 1 year, the sale price of new apartments has increased by nearly 1930 million won. Among consumers, there is an opinion that the sale price was unreasonably priced at a time when house prices nationwide are falling. As the trading cliff due to the recent interest South Korea has imposed sanctions on North Korean individuals and groups for stealing cryptocurrency assets and coordinating cyber attacks, the first independent steps to curb cybercrimes that Seoul says are linked to bankrolling Pyongyang's nuclear and missile programs. For North Korean computer programmers and 7 entities associated with North Korea's top military intelligence agency, the Reconnaissance General Bureau, face the ban, Seoul's foreign ministry said Friday, stressing growing threats from Pyongyang, which is still as belligerent as a year before when it fired off a record number of missiles. The ban covers big names like Park Jin-hyuk and the Lazarus Group, but they are not the only targets under scrutiny, a senior foreign ministry official said, declining to elaborate, citing protocol. Park is a member of the Lazarus Group, which the U.S. says is responsible for the WannaCry ransomware attack in 2017 and the March attack last year on Ronin, a blockchain network that powers online game Axie Infinity. Ronin claims digital cash worth $615 million was stolen. And the kind of crypto theft plays a crucial role in advancing North Korea's missile and other malicious programs, according to Ann Neuberger, U.S. Deputy National Security Advisor for Cybersecurity. In November last year, she said state-backed cyber attacks pay for roughly 30% of the isolated country's funds needed for weapons. Earlier this month, Foreign Minister Park Jin pledged closer Seoul-Washington ties to identify loopholes in United Nations Security Council resolutions that Pyongyang exploits to earn cash. The latest sanctions could be part of broader outreach, prompting more countries to follow suit as they learn about North Korea's cyber attacks, a step that leads to a wider coalition to disrupt the systematic hacking campaign, according to a Seoul official. The Friday ban makes any financial transactions with those North Korea hackers illegal, unless authorities give their explicit say-so in advance. This is the third time since October and December that the Yoon Suk-yeol administration, which took power in May, has rolled out sanctions, a reflection of the conservative leader's promise to get tough on the regime. How exactly North Korean hackers had run cyber attacks was not detailed over concerns that it could give away the government's investigation methods. How did Gangnam become the Seoul epicenter it is today? Views of apartments from Mount Daemo in Gangnam District, southern Seoul, in November. News 1. Gangnam is known globally as the posh neighborhood that served as the backdrop of the Gangnam Style sensation in 2012. Gangnam, where the biggest trends begin in Korea, is the mecca for almost everything loved by locals and tourists, from streets filled with luxury brands to the trendiest restaurants and even plastic surgery. The term Gangnam technically means south of the river, and refers to 3 districts in Seoul below the Han River: Gangnam, Seocho, and Songpa. Residents in the entire Gangnam region are often characterized as having either come from a wealthy family or hard workers with professional jobs. So living in Gangnam is often seen as a barometer for one's financial success. Of all the households in Seoul with a monthly income above 8 million won, $6,400, 33.2% were in Gangnam District and 27.9% in Seocho District, according to a report published by Seoul City last June. Songpa District came in at 5th with 23.8%, after Yongsan District in central Seoul and Songdong District in eastern Seoul. Many popular sports stars, celebrities and lawmakers are or were once residents of the area, including actors Ko So-young, Ha Suk-jin, and even President Yoon Suk-yeol, before he entered the presidential office in Yongsan District. Of the 59 senior government officials under the Yoon administration, 49% of them own a house in Gangnam, according to data by Democratic Party lawmaker Ko